And hello, Debbie, now that everybody can hear us. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, we're back in.
Here we were having a great old little conversation between us and nobody could actually hear us. So it's nice that everybody can hear us now. So thanks for joining us. We are going to actually go through Authentisign 2.0 today. We are going to show you the new enhancements that have been released. We are also going to show you why it is 60% faster. We're going to show you some of the new bells and whistles, and I know you're pretty excited to get started. We had about 100 people register for this class, so we've got a few more just popping back in. So we will give them a minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started in a little bit less than a minute. So Lisa, how's your summer going?
It's going great. Still in the middle of remodeling, but it's great.
Still.
Yeah.
No kitchen for 2.5 months has not been fun, so but it's all good.
I would have lost it. Debbie, how's your summer going?
It is going good. It has been it is the summer of graduations. This is a crazy one. There were actually 10 family members that graduated high school this year.
Wow.
And then, there were other friends that we went to as well. So it's been a lot of travel, but don't worry, I haven't slowed down on my golf game at all. As a matter of fact, MiRealSource gets to go to a golf outing tomorrow for the first time. Claire Gladwin is one of our vendor MLSs, so we are able to get up there and support their MLS and their causes as well. That's really nice, and that is the last MLS that we have brought on board to our data sharing, all for our members.
All right, it looks like I know it's exciting. It's exciting just to be with people again. I have to tell you, it's just nice, getting to work with everybody again, and it's going to be really nice when we start doing our in-person classes again in our building. I miss seeing everybody. So, all right. Well, with that, now that we know everybody can hear us, I say we get into the meat and potatoes. We've got about 50 that have logged back in. So let's go ahead and get started. All right.
One thing I want to bring your guys' attention to, remember Colleen had mentioned that the questions and chats were on the right left-hand side of your screen. In there is also 2 handouts. There is the Authentisign 2.0 Quick Start Guide, and then another one on just a little bit more information about what is really cool and improved in Authentisign 2.0. So don't forget to download those. And I know this is crazy, but you will also find them in the MLS documents in Paragon. And if you still can't find them, email me. I'll send them to you.
Awesome. All right. So I am going to take you through the new exciting features and enhancements in Authentisign 2.0. So let's go ahead and get started. And again, Lisa and Debbie have been kind enough to monitor all the questions. So if you do have any questions throughout the demonstration today, feel free to just type them into the questions box. Or if you do have a mic set up on your computer, you can also do the raise hand icon. And that will allow you to ask your question to the group. All right, let's get started. So about 1.5 years ago, they started putting together, meaning Lone Wolf, started putting together the new Authentisign 2.0, which is going to have a lot of exciting features. But the biggest thing is it takes you from having to always go through that 4-step wizard and open each one up. It's now got a cleaner UI, a user interface. It's a little bit easier to jump just to the points that you need. But there were some true advantages of the new Authentisign 2.0. One was that you could change the signer's name on the fly. So I hate to admit this, but I did one time send out an envelope. I call them kind of an envelope, sent it out for signatures, and unfortunately the last name was spelled incorrectly. Then you had to actually cancel it out. You had to go in and copy it and then resend it. You don't have to do that any longer. You can actually edit the signer's name in real time, making it so much easier to make those changes to things like names or information for the signers. On the other side, the signing got much easier on the client side. Before, they were kind of taken through a couple different steps. It wasn't very clear. And so sometimes the user got a little confused in the process. So when they were going to sign their contracts, it was a few extra steps. You'll see that that's actually has been minimized as well. So we're going to not only walk you through what you see as the agent, but we are going to walk you through what the signers see and how that's been simplified as well. So now it's easier to add signature blocks and roles. I'm happy to say that they've also made the documents themselves much clearer. Before, if you brought in a PDF, sometimes those documents, they weren't really high resolution, and sometimes those documents themselves were a little bit fuzzy or blurry. So they've corrected that. They've made the documents crisper. They're blown up so that the signer can see them easier. And you'll notice that the markup tools have also gotten kind of a facelift. I know I often had a little bit of difficulty with that, the pen tool. It was a little bit cumbersome, hard to use. You'll see that that's gotten easier. And now you can, on the fly, set expiration dates and reminder dates. But you can also give feedback. So if someone rejects a document, they can leave feedback for you of why they're actually rejecting that document, whether their name was spelled incorrectly, or there was a wrong contract date, or if attorney, let's say you have an attorney reviewing the documents, they can actually go in and give feedback of why they may be rejecting that particular document. So a lot of great enhancements there. As you can kind of see here, the interface has changed so that everything is open in front of you. You no longer have to click each one of those sections open. You'll see it's a little bit more simplified as the agent workflow. And again, you'll see that the documents themselves are now in a clear interface, and the documents are much more crisp and blown up, so it's much easier to use. The biggest enhancement, I think, in playing with it over the last couple of weeks is that it truly is faster. It's 60% faster now. Not only is the process faster, but the program itself is faster. And I think what you'll notice is every once in a while when you were loading documents, you would kind of see that circle pop up. I called it the slow moving circle. You'll notice that that is gone. You can now add documents, and in just a second, they actually appear. And again, you'll see that each document is a lot crisper and clearer than it used to be. Of course, this is going to be easier to use on your tablet and on your phone. It's 4 simple steps as it was before, but you don't have to open up each section. So again, if you just joined us, feel free to ask questions as we go throughout the demonstration today. Just put them in that question box over to the right, and then Lisa and Debbie are manning the questions, and they can ask your questions out loud. Or if you'd prefer, again, you can click on that hand icon and we can unmute your line if you have a mic set up on your computer so you can ask your question. All right, and then lastly, here's what the new Insights button looks like. So again, if an attorney were to reject a document, or a signer were to reject signing a document, they can leave clear information of why they're rejecting that document now, which was something you couldn't do before, which was a little aggravating. You'd have to pick up the phone and reach out and contact the attorney to find out why he didn't allow his client to sign the document. Now they can actually put that right in the box, so you can make that simple correction and send it back out. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and let's actually get started. I'm going to show you the product live. I'm going to bounce over to another screen here real quick. So we're going to start off today in Paragon. And Lisa and Debbie, since we had a little bit of technical issues earlier, are you able to see my Paragon screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. All right, so that's actually where we're going to start today. So obviously the enhancements are really in Authentisign, but there are some things that we wanted to show you too as we get started in Transaction Desk itself. Tom Lipinski was kind enough to share his $2 million listing with me. It's always nice when you have a really pretty, shiny, good-looking example. So for those of you who may have not been super familiar with the Transaction Desk program or with Authentisign, we're going to take you on a quick tutorial on how to set those documents up within Transaction Desk so it's much easier to sign. All right, so again, when you are on the purchase side of a transaction, the first thing you want to do is you actually want to find that listing that you've just shown that you want to write your offer on. You want to find that in the MLS. Now, once I'm finding that listing ticket, I'm going to see those quick action icons that you see right there. Well, the one I'm actually looking for is obviously the transaction desk icon. I'm going to go ahead and click on that icon, and I'm going to start my purchase side transaction from there. Now, one of the beautiful things about Transaction Desk is you can set up your packets, just like your listing packet or your sales packet that you probably have prepared at your brokerage. The idea is that you can have that same exact package set up for each one of your agents to use for your firm. One of the nice things is all the agents, when they're starting their transaction, they can say, okay, I want to use my buy side or buyer transaction or listing transaction, and it's going to pull the information for that property right from the MLS. And now I just have to tell it, who am I in this transaction? So because I'm starting on the purchase side, the property is already listed in the MLS, I'm simply clicking that quick action link, and I'm now saying that I am the selling agent in this transaction. So I want to apply all of my buyer package or my buyer forms that my broker has already set up. Now, if you are a broker, remember, we can help you set up your packages. If you have your own custom forms, we would love to help you get those into Instanet. And even if you have checklists for the office, we can help you set up that for your entire firm. So when agents go to start a transaction, everything they need is right in front of them. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that I am the selling agent. I'm going to apply my buyer package. I'm going to select the create button. And basically, I'm pulling over those forms that we're going to sign in the new Authentisign. One of the other things that I encourage you to do if you are a broker, sometimes setting up clauses or your own legal language, and again, you can do this as an agent, but I really recommend doing it as a broker. Setting up your own legal language allows the agents to choose from the legal language you may have predetermined is correct for any type of scenario. Let's say you have concessions. Let's say you have a home inspection language you want them to use. Let's say you have a particular ancillary that they're going to be using. If you have information that you set up or legal language you want your agents to use, you can even set that up in the clause library so they're not coming up with their own legal language. They're simply using what the broker has already approved. So once I've now started my transaction, because I pulled it from the MLS, you can see that about 30 fields are already filled out here for me. So it's basically walking you through that wizard and creating those transaction documents with the information that we now want to make sure that we're adding into our forms. So as you can see, the address, the legal description, the school district, year built, legal description, all of that is coming over. But of course, the important information is, what does our buyer want to pay? Obviously, we can't pull that from anywhere. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to put in our purchase price. So I'm going to say that we are offering $2,008,999. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add your EMD. What is the EMD that your buyer is putting down for that particular transaction? So I'm going to say he's putting down a $10,000 EMD. Now, of course, this will carry over to our purchase side transaction. Now, I'm all about the tips and tricks. As Lisa will tell you, we're always looking for the shortcuts or the easy buttons. So here's your first tip and trick. If you put in on the property include side, if you put in your, let's say, appliances, if you're asking for particular things like maybe the stove or refrigerator, maybe a pool cover or pool equipment, if you type that into the property includes, this will carry over to all of your purchase side contracts to make sure every line that is talking about the inclusions are listed there. All right, so as you know, in Transaction Desk, it's basically kind of walking you through a wizard, but I want to have a real contract to sign in Authentisign, so I'm just going to take you on a quick tour here. So maybe I want to go ahead and I want to put in things like my offer date, if my offer is going to expire at a certain period of time. The important reason to have these dates in place too is that you can also set up required tasks. Or if you're an agent, you just want to have automated reminders of when to put the lockbox on, when to make sure the sign is installed. These can actually be driven directly off the dates that you're entering within the wizard. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next here. This is the most important step. And so the reason that I brought you to the contacts area is, one, when you're pulling that information over, as you can see, it included me as the selling agent, it included the listing agent, it included the firms. But in order to really efficiently use Authentisign 2.0, you want to make sure that you are listing who the person is, because it will auto tag most of your forms. And what I mean by that is, if I'm adding in a buyer, it's going to know exactly where my buyer needs to sign. And so it's going to initial and have the signing blocks put into place for that buyer. So let's go ahead and just walk through that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to click on the add button here. And of course, we can add a new contact. We can pull from an existing contact. So if you're working with a builder or you're working with an investor that you've worked with before, you can pull them in. You can pull in from your Google contacts. You could add yourself, but remember, we already do that for you. So in this case, I just want to go in and I want to add a new buyer contact. Okay. This is the most important step. You want to make sure you do this, because if you follow this rule, when you get into Authentisign 2.0, all of those forms are really going to be pre-tagged where the buyer needs to sign, and it's going to save you a tremendous amount of time. So under my drop down here, I really want to select the buyer information, because he's going to be our buyer, and I want to put in his name. We're going to call him Barry Buyer for our example today. And his email address. So I'm just going to put mine in here. Obviously, you're going to put your buyer's email in here. All right. If it is a trust, a power of attorney, or if you're signing on behalf of a corporation, something like that, that's where you want to use these 3 additional signing blocks. So basically, if Barry Buyer was signing power of attorney for Sally Sue, and the attorney, let's say, wanted that information underneath the signature line, well, that's what the legal name would be. So it would be Barry Buyer, power of attorney for Sally Sue. Or again, if you're working with a trust, a corporation, something along those lines where they're signing on a different capacity than their actual just name, then that's what these 3 fields are for. Again, you have your legal name, preferred signature, preferred initials, and those only need to be done if it's a scenario like a trust, power of attorney, or an estate. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit save. We've now added in our buyer, and that's going to take a lot of the steps out of using Authentisign 2.0. So I don't have to keep tagging all of those forms. As I go ahead and advance them again, I'm going to be able to see the forms that are part of my broker's packet. So when my broker was setting these all up, he's obviously creating the packet. It now drops the forms in for convenience. They're also really easy to drag and drop into the order that I want. You can simply drag them by grabbing the thumbnail and putting them in the order that you wish. If you want to preview or mark a form up, just use the menu dots to the right, and it's going to allow you to do that too. Now, the biggest question I think people have is, what is the difference between forms and the next step, which is the document side? Documents are going to be anything that is not a prepared form that's already in the system for you to fill out. Meaning it's not a purchase agreement where you can just go in and fill out the blanks. It's maybe title work, or as you can see, Tom Lipinski actually has an offer worksheet. It's also where you're going to find things like the seller's disclosure for the property. We automatically migrate the leg-based paint disclosure and seller's disclosures over into your transaction for you. So as you can see, when I'm ready for my buyer to not only sign his purchase contracts, but when I'm ready for him to sign the seller's disclosure as well, all they need to do is sign, because these documents are already within the transaction. So keep in mind the big difference when you're using Transaction Desk and we get into Authentisign 2.0 is forms are really just that. They're the fillable forms that Instanet or Transaction Desk already has for you to just fill the blanks in. However, if there's things like a home warranty, if there's things like an offer worksheet, a referral form, something along those lines, that's going to be considered a document. And one of the benefits that being a MiRealSource member gives you is once you start a transaction the way I just showed you, you'll notice that those seller's disclosures and lead-based paint forms automatically go right into the transaction for you for convenience, so your buyer can sign everything all at once. So again, if I want to view the seller's disclosure, it's right here. I can click on it, open it up, but it will also now be there so that my buyer can sign everything in one easy email that I'm sending him. I don't have to send multiple emails, one with the offer to purchase and another with the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint. Everything's packaged together for me. One big advantage in the 2.0 as well is on your transaction dashboard, you will notice Authentisign documents that have been signed. You will also notice that there is classic and new. And what that means is the old version will be sunset in October. So that means you're going to want to start playing around with the new version right now, but you can bounce back and forth. So if you're in an extreme hurry, you just got to get something signed quickly and you want to stay in what you know, well, you can actually use the classic and that will allow you to see everything you've signed. It will also be that same interface that you're familiar with. But I do recommend force yourself to start using the new, because in October, they will be sunsetting the old version of Authentisign. So you want to make sure that you are familiar with what the new version looks like. All right. So another thing that you'll notice is under signings in your transaction, you will be able to see what you've sent out and what the status is. So right over here to the right, you'll see signings. This will allow you to go right into your signings as well. So we basically created our transaction. Now let's look at Authentisign 2.0. As I mentioned, don't worry, when you go in right now, if you're in a hurry, you have the option to still use your classic version. You'll see two tabs right up here at the top, and then you will see new over to the right. So if you're not ready to make the switch, again, if you're in an extreme hurry, don't be afraid to simply stay in the classic version. Still will show you those user-friendly icons like what's been completed. We'll have that blue ribbon. Things in progress, we'll have the lightning bolt. And of course, anything that is still in your wizard or on the agent's side, let's see, do I have any of those? Will show those gears as they always have. But now what I want to do is I want to jump over into the new, because as you can see right off the bat, it's kind of got a couple different looks here. You can see what's in the draft status, what's sent, and you'll also see very easily what's been completed. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start a new signing. I'm just going to click the add, and it will ask you, do you want to start it in the classic or the 2.0? I'm going to click on 2.0. This is the absolute most important step, whether you're using the classic or 2.0. You want to make sure that you're marrying the transaction file so it can pull all the important information to the signing, I call it an envelope. Think of it like an envelope where you're putting all the documents that you want your buyer to sign. So I'm going to give this one a name. I'm going to name it our transaction file. So in the subject line, it's going to say Lakeshore Purchase Documents, or we'll call it PA. Down here is where I marry what I'm going to have them sign to the transaction file that I want it to return to. Because remember, if you do this step, when your clients sign the documents, it goes right back into your transaction for you. So everything has been kept all together. And even if, let's say, the buyer decides to sell 2 years down the road, you can go right back to that file and open up all of their signed docs and all the information for that transaction. So again, I'm giving my signing a name. I'm tying it to the transaction file so it knows exactly where to put those signed documents when they're done. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Now, previously, what you saw was a dashboard. And you're going to see this looks a little bit different now. But previously, what you saw was a dashboard. You had to open each one of the sections up. You had to click through them. There were multiple steps. As you can see here, it's a little more streamlined because everything is already open right here on the right side. So you do not have to go in and open each one of those sections up as you did before, and that is a time saver. You'll also notice that it's 60% faster. When we're ready to add our signers in, we're simply going to say, do we want to add ourselves? Do we want to add a new signer? But remember, if you do all the hard work, you create the forms in Transaction Desk, this piece is really easy because all you want to do is pull the information you've already set up from the transaction, just as you did previously. So because I'm pulling them from the transaction, you can see Barry Buyer, who we just created. You can see the listing agent and the selling agent are all here pulled directly from the transaction information. Now, if you were, let's say, just going to send this to one side of the transaction, let's say you were just going to send this to the buyer, maybe it's a husband and wife. Well, then you could set it up this way, but really, if you're going to do this efficiently, I would want to send this to my buyer. Then on my contracts, we witness them. So then I would want to witness them after my buyer signs. And then, of course, I want it routed back so it goes automatically to the listing agent. And then maybe even onto my title company or onto a lender. So the idea is you can put this in a successional order. All you want to do is you want to toggle the little toggle right here to set the order. So what I want to do is I want to make sure it's going to go to my buyer first. I want to make sure it's then going to come back to me for signing and then automatically be delivered to the listing agent. Now, if there's more parties, maybe you want to add an attorney, something along those lines, then you can go ahead and simply click Add Participants and you can add more parties in. But right now, I'm going to say I want to send it to these 3 parties. How are they going to be signing it? Remember, that's another important step. Are they going to be signing it? Are they simply going to be reviewing it like an attorney? Or is it going to be delivered CC? And I also kind of want to explain that there are some differences. This is not like CC on an email. So basically, anyone who is a remote signer means that they're getting it in the form of an email. They're going to be able to sign with their fingertip or with their mouse or even on their phone. They're basically going to be a signer on these documents. If it is an attorney and you want the attorney to review it ahead of time, so the attorney is actually going in, reviewing the documents before it goes to their client, then you would make them that reviewer role. If it is a title company or a lender or an ancillary that you only want them to get these documents if all the parties have signed, that's when you'd use the CC. Because let's face it, if everybody doesn't sign, do I really need to send it over to the title company? Well, no. If we're still negotiating, I probably don't want to send it to the title company yet. But you can create a CC, which will only send it to the title company if all the parties have signed, and you can even put a personalized message in. So recently I just had a closing with a couple getting a divorce, and I wanted to make sure that we were getting separate closing rooms. So I wanted to CC the title company with some special instructions saying, you know, there's a divorce going on. I notified them they had to have their judgment of divorce at the closing, and however, we want to make sure that they are in separate rooms. So remember, you can add a personalized message to any party. So basically what you're doing in this step is you're just deciding who you're sending it to. Are they going to be a signer, a reviewer, or are they just getting a fully executed copy? And then do you want it to go in a particular order, or do you just want it to go out basically to everybody all at once? Now remember, if you're including the listing agent and you're on the buy side, you may want to make sure you're putting it in a signing order. You don't want to get the listing agent the copy before your buyer has signed it. So really the hardest part is, are you putting them in a particular order, or if you're only working one side of the transaction and you just want to send it to a husband and wife to sign, that's when you don't really need to set the signing order. I always use the signing order. It just helps me keep track of who signed it and who needs to sign it. So it's just kind of my personal preference. But then once you've selected who's going to be signing and how, the next thing that we need to do is we just need to hit select. Okay, so we've selected who's going to be signing the documents. Now the question is, what order do you want them to be placed in? So for me, I want Very Buyer really to be the first person signing. So you see, I didn't have to adjust each number. I can literally take these menu dots and I can move them into the appropriate order. If you need to change information for a particular buyer, or if you've sent it out and heaven forbid you realized, oh my gosh, I spelled the buyer's name wrong, even though you've already sent it. Now, this is a change from the previous version. Even though you've already sent the documents, you can go to that party's information and you can change it in real time. You can also quickly add these people to your contacts so that if you're, and I always do this, by the way, because usually if you send one document down the way, you're going to end up sending them something else for them to sign. So it's just easier if you go ahead and add them to your transaction contacts. And then you can also pick how they're going to be signing right from here too. Okay, so pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and cancel there. So I've got my buyer signing first. Obviously, if I'm going to witness my contracts or sign as the agent, I want to have me in that second position. And then obviously I want it to be delivered to that listing agent. You can still, from this step, add additional people who will be signing. And again, if you need to make any changes to a name, to an email address, anything like that, you can simply go ahead and click on that arrow to the right, and you can make those updated changes. You can put in, again, those custom signatures. Again, that would be more for a trust or a corporation, but you can go ahead and change those things right from here. And again, you can change that information even after you've hit send, which before you had to actually cancel it out and resend it to make those adjustments. Now you can actually do those things on the fly. All right, do we want to break for any questions up to this point? I see the question box is flashing quite a bit. Debbie, Lisa, do we want to break for any questions here?
You know, I actually did have one question in here. So Francine Willingham asked a question, although Lisa did respond. So I wanted to let everybody know. So she asked me, that was the other question. Okay. So if she has already started a transaction or a signing in Authentisign 1.0, can she also find that in 2.0?
Great question. No, you can still find it. It's still there, but it's under the Classic tab. If you remember in the beginning when we started off, there's the Classic tab and then the 2.0. Now you could, if you were sending documents from that transaction, so you're sending them out again, the answer is yes, you can still send it again and it will now go into the 2.0 section. They're listed there. The only thing is that tab is sort of separating. When you click on the 2.0 tab, you'll only see things that you've signed in 2.0. When you click on the Classic tab, you'll only see things that you've signed in the Classic version.
Thank you. And actually, that was Crystal Zabel, so I appreciate that, Crystal.
Great question.
And let's see. Oh, Franny's got that one. What does Lori McKeough have? Wouldn't we see the signed PA to the listing agent as CC, not remote signer?
Yeah, you know, it depends if they are signing or if you have, generally, yes, I would actually CC. Sometimes you can actually go full circle. You may, if you've already got a meeting of the minds and you know they're just signing, you can actually send to the listing agent and give the listing agent the ability to have their client sign it as well. So you could, if he's only receiving it as a copy, you could actually change him from a remote signer to a CC. However, if you are an agent who requires them to sign to say that they have received, a lot of people are doing offer receipts, especially in this market where there are so many offers. If you are doing an offer receipt, then he may be a signer. So, yep, again, if you are just sending documents like an attorney, you can send them to the listing agent. Remember, really, if you're doing an attorney, I recommend doing the reviewer role. But if you just want them to get a copy at the end when everything's all signed, you could do that too. Depends on, you know, the order, if you're including everybody or if you're just including, if I'm just sending it to my buyer and then to me and I'm not including the listing agent at all, then obviously we go to the buyer and then to me to sign. I like to generally CC the listing agent on the end, so it's one less step I have to do. But again, if you already have a meeting of the minds, you can even now send it, so it's called private participant role, and that would allow you to send it to Tom to look over. Tom can sign any places he needs to sign, and it can even go on to Tom's clients as long as he allows it, and then they can sign it that way. So
nice. And then Francine
that's a little more advanced, but
yeah. Francine does have one more question. Can CC be changed to all signed? I don't think that's an option, but you would know
No.
more.
No, unfortunately, it's kind of preset in that would be great, but yeah, no, it basically is the all signed document that's now going to whoever you decided, but no, it says
yeah.
TC in the drop down. Good question though. It's good feedback. And by the way, there is a place for any feedback. Remember, this is brand new. They've just launched it in July. And so they're still looking for feedback. I've already submitted a couple little things that I think would make it even better. But there is a place when we're done, I'll show you, and you could provide that feedback. So I think that's actually a really good suggestion, is all signed, because it really is an all signed document that's now going to a title company or lender generally.
Excellent.
All right.
Yep,
Any
and
other
then
questions?
Francine-
Good questions.
Yeah, Francine hit the nail on the head. She says, this new setup is the same as the old Authentisign. It just seems like they rearranged everything and added some updates. Yes, they filed all of this stuff away and neatly organized and has made it, 60% faster. That's one of the biggest things, is how fast it is now, and no more hang-ups in the circle of death.
Yes, the spinning wheel circle when you were adding stuff and it would take forever, that's gone. Yeah, a lot of it's just really repositioned. Again, it's faster. It does allow you to, make changes on the fly, which it didn't in the old system. The signing roles are simply the same. The biggest difference for me is I don't have to go through that entire wizard to get to the end. I can actually, if I don't need a particular step, I can just do the steps I need because they're right over here to the right. All right, makes sense so far?
Yep. Hey, Beth asked, do you have time to go over the power of attorney part or no?
Sure. As far as the signing.
Yes, I think so.
Yep.
So
So
I'm also going to add that in the handouts.
Two ways. Yes. So if you want them to sign power of attorney on a document, you could actually type that in. And now I generally do that, to be honest, on the transaction desk side, so I don't forget to do it in the future. I always put it under the buyer's information. So when you're setting that buyer up in the transaction desk side, I usually will put power of attorney for Sally Sue. But you can do it here. I do it on the transaction desk side simply because when I send stuff out later, I don't want to forget. I want it to actually be kind of a permanent thing in the transaction desk side. So as I'm sending addendums a month down the road, it already says power of attorney for Sally. This would make it for just this particular documents that I'm sending out. So I do that in the transaction desk side, but you can do it here as well. So if you just wanted to type that in, you could go ahead, you could do trust, you could do power of attorney, things like that. Okay, and so you can add it in under the signer's information here, or like I said, I generally like to do it when you're adding your buyer contact right in. Do you want to see it on the transaction desk side again too? I know we kind of went over it, but if you'd like me to cover it again on the transaction desk side, I absolutely can do that.
Beth said, yes, please.
Okay, so, and again, I think it's a little bit easier to do it on that side again, so you don't have to do it twice or for everything that you're signing. So I'm going to jump back to our transaction desk program. So I'm going to click on that little house here. I'm going to see all of my transaction desk files. I'm going to open up our Lakeshore file. And by the way, we have a whole class on transaction desk. So if you are not super familiar, don't worry. Now, remember how I said one of the things I like the new enhancements? You see right down here, see how it says Authentisign? It says I have a draft that I've started for signings. And it does show the classic and the new. So if I did it in classic, so to the earlier question you had, Debbie, would you be able to see in a transaction file if you've done something classic and new? Yes, but you do have to click on the appropriate tab. So if you did one in the classic version and you did one in the new version, they will both be here. You'll just need to click on the tab right now until October, until the sunset, to figure out which one you're going to. So I'm jumping over to my contacts. Let me show you states and power of attorneys. So here we have Barry Buyer. Again, I like to make those changes right in transaction desk so it's done one time and I don't forget a month down the road when I'm sending out the addendums. I'm going to click on Barry Buyer's contact information. So here, now if he was just Barry Buyer, that's really all the information I would need. But really what I want to do is I want to type that Barry Buyer is the power of attorney for Sally Smith. I had an attorney who made me actually write out the, it was a trustee for the trust and the date of the trust. So sometimes they want it very specifically laid out underneath the signature line. And so if they need to sign in a different capacity, that's where you're going to type it in. So whether it's a trust, power of attorney, you know, if they're a trustee for someone, that's where you're going to actually type it out. All right, and then you're going to hit save, and now that's updated. And what that means is anything I send out from there going forward, it's going to know how to set up that signature on those documents. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Let us know if you needed anything else there or if we answered your questions. A little harder via webinar since, you know, I don't know the whole question. Debbie, anything else before we go back?
I'm in the process of answering Francine's.
All right, good.
For the minute.
All right, awesome. So as you can see, even though I left and I went back into Transaction Desk, maybe you have something you need to update, something like that, it does auto save everything for you, which I also like because once in a while, you know, you get a phone call, you all of a sudden get distracted, now you've got to go back in. So basically, even though I did nothing, I didn't save it, it is saved in my signings. So I can click back into Authentisign for that particular file, and it's going to be right where we left off. So we have Tom, our CC, we have our selling agent, Barry buyer, and obviously if we need to add other parties, we can do that too. So you could, if you were more comfortable with the dashboard that you used before, you could go ahead and hit next. It will guide you through. You've got the documents actually already open here, or you can simply just click on the tab. Remember, the biggest thing to keep in mind if you're new to Transaction Desk is what is the document and what is the form. Remember, forms are the forms that are already in there with the little fields that you're just adding the information in. However, if they are a document, something you brought in, like a home warranty form or title work or something that's not in there, you're going to now see that so that those can be added to, but that is referred to as a document. And you'll see that they are listed differently right under where you can add forms and documents. You'll see what's a document. So Tom has a COVID form in here for buyers. He also has the seller's disclosure in here. He has an offer worksheet. So all of those documents automatically migrated over right into the forms that I can now choose for them to. I don't have to try to find the forms, then try to find the extra pieces. Everything's all in one convenient place. So again, if my buyer is signing the seller's disclosure, I'm simply going to click the add button next to the seller's disclosure. I'm going to pick maybe his offer worksheet. I'm obviously going to add the purchase agreement, my buyer's agency. So all of the forms that I now want to be part of the signing, I'm just going in and clicking add, and I can go ahead and add those in quickly. If you want to view them, you can obviously click on them. If you wanted to pull in additional documents, if I wanted to go in and maybe on my computer I have a COVID addendum, maybe I have something that I want to pull in, I can simply find it on my computer, or you can drag and drop, and you can do up to 20 forms at a time. So if you have everything in a folder, you can actually grab 20 things, throw them onto that little strip that you just saw there. Very, very easy to pull them in quickly. It's a drag and drop. So if you want to quickly add additional documents, let's see if I have anything in here for today. Here, we'll use this little supply list. I can drag them right onto that strip. It's a drag and drop, and you can see it's actually added that quickly. So if you have a file folder on your desktop where you wanted to add multiple documents all at once, very easy. If you just want to click add a document or form, I can go ahead and click the upload or import. Again, if I have it on my computer or in my downloads, I'm simply going to grab it, drag it onto where it says drag and drop, and immediately it's going to load that file for you. Okay, so pretty easy. And you could do that in the previous version too. One of the other things, I do think it's a little bit easier, this screen itself, because you can very quickly see what's already part of your transaction. You again can go ahead and drag and drop forms in. You could click Add Document From, where you could actually pull them from, you could email them into the system, you could pull them from, if you're using Dropbox, your Google Drive. If you've got them saved in Transaction Desk, you can pull them in here, from here too as well, or you can just find them on your computer. But then I get a lot of questions on the My Files. Colleen, what's the My Files for? Well, if you wanted to grab a single form, or let's pretend for a moment that you had a transaction, the transaction had a bad home inspection, but you're now writing another transaction and you want to pull your buyer's agency form. Now, he's already filled that out for his previous transaction, so you're not going to send it to him again and make him sign it all over, right? But you do want it to be part of this transaction. That's actually where you can click the Documents area, and you can pull from other transactions. So if I have his buyer's agency in his Volpe file right here, I can go ahead and add it to this file too. So it's really helpful if you do have a deal, unfortunately, that doesn't go through, and you have a deal that you want to pull documents that you've already started for the deal that did die, like a buyer's agency or maybe a copy of their EMD check, something like that. You can actually go into your other transactional files and pull them into your new file. Okay, so really easy to add documents. Again, your transaction documents will be right here in that first tab. Whether they are documents or forms, they will still be here, so you can easily add them in one step. So if I want to add it, just click that Add button. If you want to bring in outside forms, remember those are going to be documents, and you're going to be able to either drag and drop them or just select from the drop-down where you want to pull them from. And then the My Files is really if you've got a transaction maybe that, again, that died and you want to pull individual pieces into this transaction, you can do that by going to My Files, Documents, and whether they're shared documents or a transaction file, you can grab those pieces. So let's say I want to grab my buyer's agency again from my Alberta file here. Just going to find it within the transactional forms, hit Add, and now I've pulled it into my new transaction as well. All right, which I love. I mean, that does happen, unfortunately, and I'm certainly not going to send it out. I don't want to have to print it out and then scan it in and bring it back into my file. So that certainly does make it a whole lot easier. All right, any questions, Debbie, before we go forward?
I think we're okay for the minute. What's that, Lisa?
I think we're all good. I think I just answered the last one, so I think we're good.
All right, I did see one, and just to reiterate, yes, I know it is. I think the most confusing part is that a form is where you're going in and it's a preset form. It's in there and it's just got those fields where you can fill out the information. Documents are anything outside that you're bringing in, like title work, like a home warranty, like documents that are not set up by Instanet, but documents that you still want to add to be part of your transaction. Lisa, anything you want to add there? Anything I missed so far?
No, you're doing an excellent job as always, Colleen.
Oh, thanks. I'll pay you later.
Sounds good.
When you're sending these documents out for signature too, keep in mind you can drag and drop them in the order you want. So if you, let's say, want your agency to be on top, you can literally grab that particular document, move it to the top, and you'll see you don't have to renumber them. It actually does that for you. So all you have to do is grab the little dots over here, the little menu dots, move them into the order you wish, and it will then actually send them in that order for signatures. I know some people are really funny about that, like their agency to be right on top. I'm one of those people, so you can put them in any order that you want to do. All right, if you go over to the right, now here's where I think the biggest changes took place. And some of them I like, some of them not so much. So I'm going to kind of show you. Before, when you were working with a multiple page document, it was very clear if you wanted to go in and use what I call the page selector, you could actually do that by using it, creating a new PDF. Here, it's these tiny little menu dots down here, which that is some feedback that I turned in. they're called page options. It's not really super clear. If you were trying to remove a page or rotate a page, let's say you scanned it in upside down, it was, I think, a little bit clearer in the previous version. Now, I think it's easier to use here, but if you don't know where you're looking, that can be a little bit of an issue. So if I wanted to rotate this page, I would click the menu dots to the right. I would click the rotate option, and obviously it's going to rotate that page around for you. So you're just going to make sure it's in the order that you want. And now I've got that page rotated. The other one, you could delete a page. You could do a page preview, which will actually blow up that page so you can see it. But if you want to remove a page, now a good example of that is every once in a while, you know, maybe you have a buyer's agreement and you want to only send the agent maybe one of the pages of maybe you're only initialing a change on one of the pages of the PA. If you wanted to remove a particular page, you can do that from here. So kind of like a, think of it as if you sent your buyer the buyer's agency, which is between you and your buyer, right? But then you had them sign the traditional agency, you had them sign the purchase agreement, you had them sign a bunch of other pages. But now I don't want to send the listing agent the buyer's agency, let's say. I want to cut that page off. I don't want to send that. That's between me and the buyer. It's got his phone number on there, what he's looking for, his address. I don't want to send that to the listing agent, right? Because that's between me and the buyer. So what I want to do is I basically want to cut that page off. So I can click on delete a particular page or pages by just selecting them. So I'm going to take out page 2 and 3 here. I'm going to say, okay, I want to delete those selected pages. Now I'm only sending the listing agent the pages I want him to have. Okay, so it's a little bit easier when you're trying to edit those pages or trying to remove a particular page. You can do that right from here. You can also map signers, but if you do that, if you just take the time to fill out that Barry buyer was in fact the buyer, it's already going to know where those signatures go. So it will save you a lot of time. That's why I kind of took you on that little tour at the beginning. If you say that Barry buyer is in fact the buyer, it's going to know where to place those buyer signature blocks. So you don't have to go in and drag each one onto the document. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, to reorder, simply drag and drop so you can reorder the pages of the document. So if I want page 2 to be page 1, you're just going to drag and drop them. If you want to remove a particular page, you can hit the delete. You can view it, or you can hit that rotate button. But you do have to look for, I found this a little confusing because I thought it was kind of like the page numbers at the bottom, quite honestly, when I first saw it. But it's actually where you're going in and you're working with the document itself. All right. Now let's jump over to tools. So the tools are right in front of you. You don't have to click on them to open them. You can change the signers just as you did before. You can still add a new signer from this step. If you remember before, you had to go all the way back to the signer tab to add a new signer. Now you can do that right from here. So it makes it so much easier. So if I'm setting up the signature blocks for Barry Buyer, I'm obviously going to find the places that Barry Buyer is going to sign or initial. I'm going to drag and drop that right onto the document. I can put in, years, that the actual date block is there. You can make it larger or smaller. That's a little bit easier than it was before. Before it was a little more, you could kind of choose from the 3. It was a little bit harder to blow it up. Again, you can go ahead and format things. So if you need the year first in your line, sometimes it's on some of the attorney forms, it's listed out that way. And you can also make the backgrounds transparent or make them so that they are not transparent. So remember, if you're doing a counter offer and you don't want to see what's behind it, a lot of times that makes all the difference. Okay, so again, if they're signing in a place, you're going to drag those signature tabs into place. I'm going to go ahead and remove that date line. You can also allow the buyer to add something. So maybe he wants to type in the appliances that he wants to ask for it to be included. You could actually drag that field right into place so that they could actually start typing in there. And you can make them multi-line now, which you couldn't really do before. It was very chunky. Now you can go ahead and you could actually open up a paragraph if you wanted to be able to allow that buyer to type something in. I'm going to be honest, I generally don't do that because they're not going to be as familiar as we are with those contracts. So I generally stick with the signing, the initialing. Of course, you do have your check boxes. So if you wanted to add a checkbox for them to check off which of the appliances that they would be including, you could go ahead and do that. You simply drag the checkboxes into place, and now it would allow them to check off the ones that they're asking for. Also, instead of creating each little initial box at the bottom of each page, my particular purchase agreement for my company is 7 pages long. So that would mean I would have to, if you had a husband and wife, I would literally have to go in and put 14 different initial boxes in just for this particular document. You can also click on the initial pages, and you could say at the bottom right, I want to have the initials placed, and you can pick from large, medium, or small. I want to have them just placed on the document. Who's going to be initialing? Well, of course, our buyer. And what documents do I want that to be applied to? I want to pick the purchase agreement. So I wanted to have Barry Buyer's information for the initial on the bottom right. Now, sometimes you do have to move them into place for the document, but it's a heck of a lot easier, especially if you have 2 parties like a husband and a wife. It's a whole lot easier if I just move them instead of going over here, dragging it for the husband, changing it to the wife, dragging it for the wife. It's a whole lot easier by clicking initial pages. I can pick the parties and exactly where I want them to be placed, and then I can just drag them right into the appropriate spot. So it's just a little bit easier if you have a multiple page PA where everybody's initialing at the bottom. Try that initial pages. I think you'll like it. And then obviously the radio buttons. And a lot of people don't use the radio buttons. They're one of my favorites, but you have to kind of know how they work. And they are a little bit different in Authentisign 2.0. The radio choices are basically where if you were to give a contract, let's say, to your buyer, and the contract said, do you want to have a home inspection? Or do you not want to have a home inspection? Okay, let's pretend for a moment that that was the question it was asking. If we put optional initials, well, let's face it, they would probably initial both of them because they really don't know exactly what that question is asking. If you want them to choose only one of the options, that's really what the radio buttons are for. So this will ask them to pick one. They can't pick, yes, I want a home inspection, and no, I don't want a home inspection. They could only pick one of those options and it would gray out the other. Now, if they do make a mistake, of course, they can go in and uncheck it and recheck the other. If there are 3 options, you can also add an additional radio button. So I basically can say, okay, yes, you want to pick, yes, you're having a home inspection, no, you're not having a home inspection, or I don't know, if there was a 3rd option, you could pick that too. But it's only going to allow them to pick one. They can't select them all. If you made them all optional, they could check all of them, and now you have an invalid contract, right? So again, use these radio buttons where you want to give them a choice of one or the other, and you don't want them to select them all. So that's what the radio buttons are for. If you do need to add an additional radio button, you simply click on it, you'll see a plus underneath it. You can go in and then move that to the area where they would be selecting. If you've made a mistake though, there's always a trash can that will pop up. You can click on that, it will delete that option so that you don't have a bunch of things on there for them to go through. All right, if you just wanted to add the signer's full name underneath, so let me go to my signing page here of our PA. So again, I could go ahead and we witness our contracts as I mentioned, so you can change the parties, but you can also go in, add the full name underneath our purchaser. Now, in our example, I forget who asked the question and I apologize, but someone asked to show the example of the power of attorney signature. So as you can see, it says under purchaser, the power of attorney for Sally Smith. So that's how it's underneath the signature line, and that's also then how they would be signing the document, because I set it up that way for both. So that's how it would appear. That legal signature would actually be typed out exactly as I put it into that. For Barry Buyer, we made him power of attorney for Sally Smith. So that's how the legal signature would appear underneath the signature line. Hopefully that helps. Again, you could go ahead and add one of the other options is the email address. So you could actually have that input for your buyer or seller. You can auto date it, which means as soon as they sign it, it's going to date that automatically. You can even add an auto time. So even if you're sending it one day, but they're signing it on a different day, it's capturing the date that they're actually signing it. And then there are the markup tools, and you saw all these there before, but let's say you got all the way to this step and you're doing a counteroffer. You can actually create a text box that you can move, and you can add additional information. I'm trying to find a good spot to put a counteroffer here. So if I want to add a text box, I can drag the text box into the markup. You can do highlight. Again, these are really if you're just looking to mark up the contract. If you want to point out that you got them a 3-year home warranty, the line tool, if you want to cross something off, like maybe you're not going to leave the refrigerator. You can do freehand. I'm not a big fan of the freehand, I'm going to be honest. I think it's a little bit hard to maneuver, but again, you can use these different tools. The strike through option, again, kind of that same thing if I wanted to strike through a paragraph or something on the contract. So just ways of marking things up, or again, doing more of a counteroffer. All right, any questions? Deb, is this a good place to stop for any questions?
Oh, I missed we had some more come in at the end there that Lisa has been taking care of. Maria McGuire asks, is there a way to default so that initials do not include the date and time?
They are not supposed to, and again, this is still in beta. I noticed today when I dragged this out, it does include, that is not supposed to happen. That is supposed to be only if you select it. So I will report that today. I noticed it on both the signature line and the initials, it was popping out that way, and it is not supposed to do that.
Gotcha.
So
it might be something in the background that just hasn't worked out yet.
Yeah, and remember, they're not sunsetting this till October. So I did notice a couple things that I noticed when I started working in here have already been fixed. Nice. But yeah, I did notice that today. And the funny thing is, it didn't happen that way just 2 days ago. So I'm thinking.
Crystal asks, how'd you do delete a box? So if you want to delete that little sign here button.
Oh, great question. If you click back on it, you'll notice a garbage can icon appears underneath. So if you just click back on the garbage can, it will pull it right off.
That is easy.
And then somebody I think said that they didn't see the text box. So I'm sorry, let me demonstrate that a little more clearly. Under the text box, when you click on it, it'll allow you to start typing in that field. So I just click on the text box. Let's say you want to do a counter for 57,000. I would type in 57,000, as you can see here. And you can change the font size. So maybe you want to make it larger or smaller. You can also change the color too. You can change the font type. And this is where the transparent background really comes into play. So for instance, if you were doing a counteroffer, let me make this a little bit bigger here, and you wanted to put this on top here and it was transparent, you can see how terrible that looks. But if you do the white background and you change it to a solid background, you can actually overlay without having to start your whole purchase agreement again. So keep in mind, that's why the transparent background and the solid background is there. So if you are creating a contract, you send out an offer and it's 57,000. Now you just want to go back in, your buyer calls, and you don't want to start all over again. You can actually lay a text box over it. Just make sure that that background is not transparent, and then it will cover what was behind it. Any other questions on moving the tags, anything like that? But I'm sorry, Maria, you are right. I did notice that today, and I actually went in and deleted it, and I'll report that.
Yeah, we do had a few questions of the automatic date showing up and then covering up the existing verbiage, which you just showed that transparency button.
Sure. And again, to cover that up, just in case you missed it, I know I went kind of fast. There is the text box, and it had the text box before, but what you're going to do is you're going to find that text box. Again, I think the easiest thing is to, especially if you're doing a counter offer, is to make sure that that background is completely solid. Otherwise, you get all that. It kind of looks all messy, and you can't read it anyway. So that's where that text box comes into play. Highlight, I think I covered all of the other tools, the strike through. And again, it's kind of a work in process. I think overall, I'm happy that I don't have to go through the wizard. Again, it is much more efficient, I think. It's easier to add documents in. Are there still little quirks? Absolutely. Are they still trying to make it better and better? They are. I really do think when it's completely finished, that it will be much, much faster and much, much easier. And I do like the way it integrates fully back into the signing side on the transaction desk side. And then lastly is options. Really don't need to go into options. This is only if you want to do additional details. So if you go into, like if you want to add an expiration date, for instance, you could go ahead and you could go to the expiration date. You can pick the time that you would want it to expire so they can't sign it after that period. There's the signing details, which is just basically the signing name and what's going to appear in your subject line. If you wanted to send reminders, Lisa does this. It always cracked me up. If you want to send reminders to make sure that it gets signed, you can send at a certain time, or you can send how many reminders you want to send out. If you are sending documents to be signed and there are counter offers, you want to make sure you're moving the position of the ID, meaning, you know how when you sign these, it's got that little blue tracking code at the top. If you are now sending a counter offer and it already has one of those, you're not going to be able to see what the next tracking number is. Some people don't care about that, so if you don't care, not a big deal. But if you wanted to move the signing ID position, you could move it somewhere else on the document so it doesn't lay on top of the other. And I think that's really, if you make a mistake and you want to clear your markups, or you want to clear the signing fields and start again, if you want to do it for the whole document, you can actually do it right from here. So pretty easy. There's also a place for your feedback, but you can do the next if you prefer the old method and you kind of wanted to go through, walking through it step by step. I already got that one open. You can do that as well. You can save and exit, so if you need to come back to it, you can still do that, which you could do in the other. So it's not really hard. And then obviously as we go through our next, it's telling me I missed a signer. So let me move this down here. I go back to the signer block here. It tells me it's kind of like a visual reminder. I only gave Barry Buyer a place to sign. So I missed where Colleen's supposed to sign. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on Colleen, because remember, I want to make sure she has a place to sign as well. So it's going to give you your signers the same kind of way that it did before. You just want to make sure that when you are in your, when you're setting up your signatures, you make sure you give each party a place to sign. So I'm going to click on Colleen's name. I'm going to say Colleen signing right here. And I have Colleen initial here. Now both parties have places to sign. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And we're going to customize our invitation. If you wanted to leave a message for each one of the signers, or again, special instructions, maybe for the title company, you can click customize your invite, which will allow you to change the subject line. It'll also allow you to change what's in the message body. So you could say, let me know if you have any questions. Now, one thing I want to caution you here that I found a little tricky is that both parties are actually listed here. When I first looked at it, I only saw the first party, and I thought, well, how do you customize the second party? You do, even though it doesn't kind of look that way, you do have to kind of scroll down to leave the message for the next party. So they're all listed on one, but if your resolution opens like mine does on your screen, you only really see one party. So remember, if you scroll down, you can leave a custom message for the other parties too. All right.
I got one more question.
Okay.
Maria McGuire would like to make sure that if the layouts are still going to be available in 2.0.
Yes, the layouts are still available in 2.0. They are going to carry, so you won't have to retag all of those documents, thankfully. I asked that same question. I got a little nervous. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
that would be not good. So yes, and you, if you do have new documents, you still can go in and tag them, so the layouts will be there. And then lastly, you just gotta hit send. And you get that invitation has been successfully sent. The nice thing, as I mentioned, is when you go back into Transaction Desk, right within your transaction file, so if I click on the house and I go back to the transaction file itself, it's in real time. So if I go back to our Lakeshore transaction here, and I scroll down, I can see, in fact, right here, that it has been sent and we're waiting on signatures. So I'm going to pause my screen real quick. I'm going to open up my email, and I'm going to show you what the signer is going to be seeing when they get it, because it's a little easier for them to use. Again, as long as you've added in your logo and your signature line, that will carry over. So as you can see, they get my logo at the top. It's customized to them. It's coming from me, because remember, your buyer and seller, they have no idea who Authentisign is. So it comes from you, the agent. It's got your contact information listed right in the body of the email. And then we're going to do start signing. They now get a pop-up that I think is much easier for them to understand. Before, if you remember, it was kind of a couple questions they had to answer. It was kind of a lot on a page as well. This just tells them that they're agreeing to basically the UTA compliancy that they're going to accept. And then it's going to walk them through all of the places that you've set up for their signature. So here we've done our check boxes. And I'm going to go ahead, and then again, they could go ahead and actually draw out their, with their mouse, they could draw, if they have a touch screen, they can actually draw their signature. I think this is a little bit more clear in the instructions now. Before it was a little bit ka-chunky as far as what they needed to do. Under styles, they can pick their font. They can pick the one that's closest to their signature. And then if they prefer to use their real uploadable signature, so if they have a signature that they use, let's say for Adobe Signature, and they want to upload that one, they can actually go right to the upload and they can pull that signature or initial image in. So pretty easy, not too complicated, and that's good because we know we have to make it really easy for our buyers and sellers. Lisa, did I miss anything? I kind of went through it on the agent side, kind of went through it on the signer side. Is there anything I missed?
So far, everything looks good. The only thing is, can you show them where the map signer's location is? Because I think that might be a little confusing for them compared to where we could add them before, the layouts.
Sure. Go back there. And close out of here, and we will go back. And it does, one last thing is it does actually count the blocks as it used to. I know somebody had asked a question about that previously. How do they know when they're complete? It will actually show them at the top how many, and it will take them to each one of their signatures. So I can go ahead and set my signature and click my way through. As you can see, the radio buttons, as I mentioned, you can pick one or the other, but you see I can't pick multiple. And it's going to actually walk me through each one of those. And let's see. The other thing too is if they do reject the document, I didn't show you this. If they do reject it for any reason, you can go into the drop down and you can pick what the reason was. So if the name is incorrect, if the purchase price is incorrect, they can actually pick from the drop down why they chose not to sign it too. All right, so let me go back into the layout section. Any more questions while I'm getting there?
Oh, let's see. Can we download the ratified purchase agreement and listing contracts? Yes, those are always available for download. It does eliminate a lot of paperwork, definitely. I think we're doing good on questions.
Let me get back here. Okay, so when you are setting up your signers, one of the questions that it will ask is, do you want to map a signer? Meaning my personal preference is to do the heavy lifting or all the hard stuff on the transaction side. Because remember, then it's already doing that part for you. It's already mapping where the buyer and seller, as you saw when I had the buyer initials fall into place, it knew where the buyer was going to sign on those documents. If you do want to map a signer, meaning you're not doing it on the transaction desk side, you want to do it in the Authentisign, you can click on this Map Signers button, and you can say buyer 1 is Colleen Delange. Now it's going to associate where the buyer should sign the form with the party that represents. So my buyer is Colleen. If Colleen was the seller, then I would go down to seller and picking Colleen's name. Okay, so that's really what the mapping is really telling the program who that party is so that it automatically puts those tags into place where they're supposed to sign. Did that help? Did that answer the question, Lisa?
I believe so, and I can touch base with her after class too to make sure.
Anything else I missed? Any other questions? It's really one of those things, I promise, the more you get in and play with it, the easier you will really find it. It's really not hard. The biggest thing for me was remember where the rotate and delete of pages that's right on the actual page, but it's one of those programs. It does a lot of the same things. It's just knowing where you're looking for it, right? So if I go into, if I want to rotate a page, if I scanned it in upside down, it's just knowing, okay, well, that would be on the documents page here, and I would go to that particular document and find the document down below, and just remember those dots are really what you're looking for if you need to work with a page, rotate a page, remove a page. That was really, I think the hardest thing for me was just finding where that was. Anything else? Last chance to ask your questions. And as Debbie mentioned, she put some great handouts in the GoToWebinar platform. So you'll have those as cheat sheets. And remember, you can find those within Paragon under MLS Documents, where you can see right here on my screen. There's a whole file of cheat sheets that are available under the Education folder. All of your cheat sheets are there. If you want to know how to, let's say, we'll use Lisa's. Lisa's a great teacher of Realist. If I want Realist documents, I'm going to go ahead and type in Realist. I can pull up the handout. I can print it. I can email it. But basically, Debbie and Lisa did an awesome job of creating really easy to read handouts on exactly how to do a particular function. We've got 83 of them, I think, now. And so we have one for just about every product, I think. Don't we? Just about every product, Debbie?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think I might have found a new one today about doing the power of attorney. We have legal names for transaction desk, but I don't know if we've got adding power of attorney. It might be about the same. So, but yeah, and then now we've added all of our quick tips on our YouTube channel.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Anything, Lisa?
Colleen, the only thing, can you show, this is kind of off topic, but for seller's disclosure, to send the seller's disclosure to a seller to fill out online to allow them to edit the form, can you just show that real quick, please?
Absolutely. That is one of my favorite features. I have to say, I use it often. And I think it's a great way to save yourself time. Let me just jump out of here. Let me close a few of these things here real quick.
And especially since the pandemic hit, that's one that's, that eliminates that much contact.
Yeah, I agree. And just being able to quickly go out, send it. Now, it is 2 steps, remember. You can send it, they can fill it out, but it's an unlocked document when you're doing that. So that I think that's where people get a little bit confused, just that if you're sending the seller's disclosure out, they can fill it out. It's returned right back into your transaction. The only thing to keep in mind is that if you are going to send all of your contracts out for signature, then you want to make sure that it's included in all the documents that you send out, and they can sign that one too. But it is 2 separate steps. And the reason is, kind of explain it, is the UTA compliancy says that your document that you're sending for a signature must be a locked document. So it must be unchangeable. But obviously it can't be locked if your clients are actually, filling it out. So that's why it's 2 steps. You send it out, they can fill it out, they can complete it, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. But keep in mind, when it comes to signing it, now it's really easy for me. I send it out and then I let them know it's coming when I'm confirming my appointment time that I'm going to meet for their listing. And then when I send out all of their documentation to sign the listing paperwork, I just make sure I include that as well. So I've got my seller's document right. Let's see, I'm pretty sure I've got that right in here. Give me 2 seconds to find it in my big long list here. If not, we will add it. So I'm just going to add one in really quick so you can kind of see exactly how it would work. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add my seller's disclosure form. Sorry, I would have had this ready, but kind of impromptu here. All right, so I've got my seller's disclosure statement. Now, normally when you're sending documents out through Transaction Desk, it's locking them into a PDF. So people can't change them. But this is that one document we want them to be able to fill out. So we are going to go to the file and we are going to send it via email. But instead of sending this document in a locked format, we're actually going to send this document in a way that they can check it off, they can fill out the fields. So I'm going to send only my seller's disclosure. And really, this and the lead-based paint would be the only one I would ever send in an unlocked format. But now I'm going to put in our seller's name. So we're going to call this Sally Seller. And I'm going to type in Sally's email. And the difference here is and I probably want to change my subject line too, by the way, but I'm going to say listing paperwork, whatever I want the subject line to be. And this time I'm not going to send it as an attachment. I'm going to actually send it as a link, and I'm going to allow them to fill that form out. You could put an expiration date in too. So let's say we want to make sure it's filled out by our listing appointment date. So you can go ahead and add that in. Now when it's sending it as a live link, and it's allowing them to fill the information in, because this is one of those forms that we don't fill out as an agent. This is something that the homeowner is only going to fill out. So I sent it to myself so I can show you actually what they're going to see. Quick refresh my email here. It does take usually about between 30 and 45 seconds to get in, so I've got it here. Okay, so I named it listing paperwork. And as you can see, again, it comes from me, the agent, because they have no idea who Authentisign is. They have no idea who Transaction Desk is, right? It's going to give them instructions. It does have all of my contact information here and my branding. They're simply going to click on the form. And now I can go ahead and I can make those changes as that seller. I can fill those out, type in, whatever, if I had water in the basement in year whatever, I can go ahead and put that onto that particular field. And if they make a mistake, the nice thing is, even if they make a mistake, they can simply deselect it and select the appropriate one instead of having 19 scratch offs, right? When it comes down to if we ever had water in the basement, I can go ahead and fill out that field as the seller and check. All I have to do, I get a very streamlined version as the seller. I can now print it or just hit save. So I can go ahead and print it so I have a copy, or I can hit save. Now, when they save it, the nice thing here too is it's going right back to the agent in their transaction file. So when I open this up in 3 minutes time, as the agent, I can actually see this filled out form. Now, again, I can print it and take it to my listing appointment, or if I'm sending all of my contracts ahead for signatures, I can actually send that out as one of the other forms too, because now it will be locked. I don't want to unlock it. I'm going to send it as an attachment. It's going to be that locked PDF so they can sign everything. Did that help, Lisa?
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions? Did I miss anything? Debbie, any last questions?
Nope. Crystal just asked if we are going to be getting the recording of this. So of course, we will always add this to our YouTube channel. And you guys, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss a thing. And if you really like something, don't forget to tap that thumbs up button.
Absolutely. And all of our classes are listed on our YouTube channel. I think with the exception of roadmap and photography, I think everything else is there. Let's see if I can quickly pull it
And
up.
orientation.
And orientation. And I love Debbie's quick tips. I know so many people are commenting and how great those are, the little quick tip videos that you send out, Deb. I think they're awesome. So yeah, if you go to our channel, and if you're there, you can subscribe and it will let you know when this class has been uploaded. There's even some, Taylor did a great job creating a new MLS video for us. So again, it's YouTube, and you go to MiRealSource Media, and that will allow you to see our full list of classes. If you click on playlist, it'll show you all of the different classes. Debbie's done a great job of sort of organizing them so they're a little easier to find. All right, I don't see anything else. Any other questions? It's your last chance. But hopefully you'll get in there and start checking out the new Authentisign 2.0. All
right. Thank you, everybody.
right, bye, everybody.